Yeah.
Dan, the way you're holding your phone makes it look hilariously large. I like it.
I'm in the class of people whose desktop Slack is broken, but mobile is still working for some reason. So
Good morning, everyone. I don't know if we're waiting for someone else to pop up and say hello, good morning, but I'll say hello, good morning. Let's see, I don't see previous chair of the TAC here, Ryan Haining, I would think would normally host this. So I'll jump in and say hello and welcome to the TAC meeting. I think I hear other people, so just you can, is my audio working? I'll just make sure. Before
Yeah, you're good, Brian.
Okay, great. Oh, I see. Okay, Ryan's on vacation. Great. All right, well, I am happy to pass the baton from this to the new TAC. Would somebody on the new TAC like to pick up the ball and not saying volunteer for chair out of the chute, but be willing to play MC for this meeting?
I can do it if no takers.
Oh, who is that, Bob?
That's Luke.
Oh, Luke. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Go for it, Luke.
Okay, so I'm pretty much just going to read from the agenda, and but you know, let's kind of co-chair this while we don't have a chair. Right. So I guess first of all, it's the new TAC. Yay! So welcome everybody. It's great to see the last 3 remaining TAC members. Great to have you on, and good to see everybody. So I guess really the first one really is to jump into, which is an election of a TAC chair. Okay, so we're going to need a chair because Ryan has obviously rotated off after doing a really great job. So yeah, anybody have any points to kick us off with there?
I'll start just by mentioning, the main role for the TAC chair is to convene this meeting, and during conversations, try to just make sure everyone gets heard, that even people beyond the TAC are able to air their observations and the like. And they're not supposed to be the note keeper, but it's partly their responsibility to make sure that at least, at the very least, whatever decisions get made in the TAC get recorded into the notes here at some point. And then finally, the TAC chair sits on the governing board as well. So there's a role there that I think is pretty important. That means being available for what are currently the first Thursday of the month, 6 a.m. Pacific time meetings. I think that boils down the main responsibilities as I see it. I might be missing something there.
And sort of ancillary somewhat, but we'll have to remember to give the new TAC chair access rights to open the Zoom bridge. I think maybe, did you open it for us, Brian?
This is Jen. I opened it for y'all. So
Okay.
either myself or David Wheeler has access, and one or both of us will always be here.
Okay, that's good. That's good then. Okay, so has anybody got any thoughts to kick us off on how we should go around the election?
Last time we did it pretty similar to the TAC election itself. People nominated, and then we sent out a ballot to TAC members to do like a ranked choice and go from there. But I think last time, if I remember correctly, Ryan was the only candidate, so we didn't really have to do an election.
Sure. So the election would just be amongst the TAC, the existing TAC members, to vote for their own chair.
Correct.
Okay, so I guess probably a good thing to do is start off and see who has an interest in standing for the election to be a TAC chair, so we can work out if we actually need an election in the first place. So does anybody have an interest in the chair position?
Yeah, so hey, this is Bob Calloway. I'd be happy to step up and play that role.
Great, okay.
I would also, but I do want to ask, are all current TAC members present to be able to participate in this question, or should we have a post on the mailing list saying, hey, if you're a TAC member,
That's a
this
good
is
point.
the election?
Yeah, so let's see. I'm just going to try and round up.
Everyone has at least signed into the agenda. I assume that means they're actually here.
Yeah, I think we have full house.
Well, then I don't see any problem with going around here, having that discussion.
Okay, so is there any other nominees at all for chair? No. Okay, so we can go ahead and get the voting system up. What medium do we use? Same as last time, or?
Well, it's the TAC itself who elect the chair, just the 7 members. You all can decide, do you want to do it anonymously? So we can set up an open vote thing just for that, not a problem. If you wanted to just do a round of hands in this meeting here, you could also do that. Happy either way. We have a governing board meeting coming up before the next TAC meeting. Might be nice to have that sorted out by then, but not essential. No, don't make that a hard constraint.
What's the date of the next governing board meeting? I know you said the thing early on, but I missed it.
Would that be March 3rd, next week?
Okay. I agree it'd be good to try to get it resolved by then, and then also before the next TAC meeting. But I think we could do that pretty quickly with Open Vote with only 7 people. Should we just kind of create the thing after the meeting today and set a deadline of before the next governing board meeting?
I move that we elect the next TAC chair by email Open Vote with a deadline of next Tuesday.
That works.
Does that work? Great.
I would second that.
Okay, so somebody at the LF can set up an open vote for us.
Yeah, between Jen and I, we'll get it set up.
Brilliant.
Oh, Jen was here. Looks like she disappeared. Oh, no, she's there.
I am,
Okay, great.
yeah, I'm here as operations so that I can administer the Zoom.
Got it.
Good stuff. Okay. So any other points on the TAC chair? No? Okay. So let's see, our next topic is assign sponsors from the TAC to each working group. Brackets initiative. So any who put this agenda item up? Do you want to be point person on it? Whoever?
I think this was actually David, and he added it last time, and we briefly discussed it. Is that correct, David? David's not here. Okay.
I don't think he's on.
Okay.
Yeah, David has a family issue. So I think he just wanted to make sure that there was a connection between the working groups and the TAC, you know, in a kind of guidance and assistance and ultimately, you know, an oversight role. So maybe there's a larger question here of like, what's the structure and format for that kind of, you know, touch point, that kind of engagement. One way to do it is with volunteers from the TAC kind of being responsible, but that does feel like a single point of failure kind of issue. I don't know, perhaps this is a longer conversation than, you know, than we have time for this week, but I think the key thing is for the new TAC to figure out how does it want to, you know, own these projects. These projects are kind of like, you know, free as in puppy, right? So where's the new TAC on this kind of thing? It'd be interesting to talk about.
Yeah, I scrolled down to the minutes last week, or sorry, 2 weeks ago, and David did add this agenda item then. So
I've mentioned a couple times trying to draw on work that Anne Pertucio and I did in the CCC. That's parallel to some of this. I just dropped a link in the Zoom chat to the description of project mentors from that foundation. Probably not exactly the same here. Working groups projects a little different, but I think this is a good thing for the new TAC to work on, and we can draw from that.
That's good. Do we have the coverage? I mean, we have 7 TAC members. What's our count now for groups and projects?
That is a great question.
Say we can't double on projects.
We're still at 6 working groups, and we're at about 3 of these special initiative projects. There's Alpha Mega, GTI, and Sigstore.
Okay.
Where is all of that information tracked? That list of 6 and 3.
The main OpenSSF GitHub page has
Yeah,
the 6 pinned at the top. Their home repositories, which essentially should be their home web pages. I mean, the main OpenSSF website is, you know, more, I don't want to say marketing focused, but like I feel like most of the substance of what goes on in those working groups happens in GitHub or occasionally Slack or whatever.
what was you said GTI?
The new toolchain infrastructure.
Yes.
The new toolchain, yeah.
Yeah.
So was that board approved? Brian, do you
New
know?
toolchain and Persa?
Persia is not yet a project. It is something that is, you know, I know the Persia community is working on the proposal, and you know, they might be here to present, but it hasn't been formally adopted yet. I know I see Steve Chin here, but
yeah,
that could be one.
I'm on if you guys can hear me, and I think what we discussed at a previous TAC meeting is we're considered in bootstrapping phase since we didn't have an official sandbox phase or way of kicking off the project, but happy to present to the new TAC and also discuss the best way we can move forward.
Thank you. I think I wasn't clear on that distinction.
Great. Okay. So any more on sponsorship of various TAC members to the different groups before we move on to the next topic? No. Okay. So let me see. Abhishek, concerns on the schema project in vulnerabilities disclosure by.
Yeah. So this concern was raised on Slack by 2 of the members. which is the OSV schema project, was approved, I think like sometime in September by the working group, like the members that attended that time. And these are some new members who just raised concern that it's not actively developed inside the working group itself, but it was approved there. So just wanted to see, and they wanted to see if there was any approval needed from the TAC as well. So I wanted to bring the project here just for reapproval and see if any of the TAC members have any concerns around it. It's very actively developed with the community because we work with the language ecosystem partners there. We are also collaborating a lot with GitHub security advisory folks. Justin is here too. So just wanted to get it rechecked with the TAC.
Okay, and so concerns were raised by Jason and Foxboron.
Yes.
I had a question. I'm the working group lead for the Vulnerability Disclosure Working Group, and I was not at the meeting that it was approved to be part of the working group, and I don't see that as part of our minutes. So if the TAC is okay with this project, I would welcome the OSV team to come back and talk to the working group so we can get that formally recorded and get you guys integrated into the working group.
Yes, definitely. We presented it at that time, but we can represent it again on what's the current status and look for active collaboration. The really bad part is Oliver is in Sydney time zone, so that's where the time zone, we might have to reschedule the meeting at a different time, but very happy to get him come to the working group again.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, and for Foxboron, I guess that's a GitHub avatar name, and Jason Kirsted. I mean, I don't know, we don't know what their concerns are. I don't know if they could possibly get to the meeting where you present that, the working group meeting, and then you can take on their concerns, and if they're not resolved, then we can look at them in the TAC. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Yeah, I've looked back through the notes. I haven't seen any questions from them, but we, again, would love to chat more about it.
Okay.
Sounds good, Peter.
So I'll just try and tag a quick note there. Working group will re-meet.
If I can just ask a question, I'm curious, does anyone on the call have concerns about that project?
I don't know it well enough to have a concern myself. So,
okay.
It sounds like there's two community members that maybe have concerns, but I don't know what their concerns are. So I figure it's best if we try to make sure, Probe, if you could try to make sure they're at the group, give them a ping or something if you're okay.
Absolutely.
With that, so they can air their concerns, and hopefully they can be addressed in the WG. If not, that's something that could come to the TAC.
Sounds great, Luke. If I can get those names, email contacts, I'll reach out right after this call.
Sure. Concerns. I've got a new keyboard and typing is all over the place. Right, so what is the next item? Request to endorse, okay, a new working group for open source package managers to cooperate. Okay.
Yeah, this was me. Yeah. I hope it's relatively self-explanatory from the title. The link there is to an issue that has been open on the TAC repo. There's a little bit of commentary there. Folks in favor, looking for more details. It's all great. To give you some color, this started as an informal call between a handful of Ruby folks and a handful of Python folks. 5 people were in the initial invite and 18 folks showed up. So there is a great deal of energy and demand for us to all workshop together across multiple open source packaging ecosystems. During that meeting, the question came up, like, should we be doing this under the auspices of the OpenSSF? And the general consensus was yes. Obviously, we want to make sure that we go through the correct process. We've seen some links in the TAC issue, and we're going to be pursuing that. But I wanted to make sure that it was on your radar that we're doing this and that we will be sort of coming back during your tenure.
Yeah. So just things that come to mind for myself. Obviously, the inspiration behind this is security concerns that there are, okay, that we know about. And I noticed it says this working group being less about end-to-end security, but you do plan to focus on security aspects, I guess, is the main thing, or is it?
Yes, that was a poorly phrased way of saying that we're not sort of like looking at the entire of a salsa flow from end to end.
I see, yeah.
But we're more specifically interested in the problems facing package managers and the questions of both technology and policy, because you know every package manager has a mix of both of those things.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. I see. So this is to foster cross-learning and collaboration.
Yeah, because the other thing too is that we'll all be attacking different sort of technological solutions and social / procedure, policy solutions at different times. So there's a lot we can learn from each other. So for example, Python have made invested an enormous amount of work in PEPs 458 and 480.
Yeah.
We've done an enormous amount of work in RubyGems looking at SigStore. NPM are really starting to look at this whole area hard. So there's a lot of shared interest. Folks have already pointed out that we should get NuGet on board. They're interested as well. So it's burgeoning pretty quickly. I think there's a spontaneous outcry for this kind of cooperation.
Okay. And sorry, just to, you probably do mention this. So this will be a new working group or an effort?
Yes, we thought about that. I think based on my experience of that first meeting, there's a lot of nitty gritty. Like there's a lot of just down on the details work that would dominate any existing work group's agenda and crowd out everything else. So I think the best arrangement is a new working group.
Okay. So not that you have to come up with a name now, but would it be something like package security or?
I think it's going to be the ultimate bike shed question. There's so many combinations of security, supply, source, package, repo, registry.
Because there is, like you say, SBOM, replay attacks. It's a big area.
It is a big area. And I think we could probably solve it with some diceware and a couple of buckets of words.
Sure.
But I think we'll wind up just picking one and going with that and accepting any issues that don't match.
Understood. Yeah. Well, I think it's definitely, just talking personally, I think it's a worthwhile effort. And coincidentally, I've been speaking to the Rustlang folks at Cargo and Crates, and they're starting to assess this space as well and what they're doing. So I'm sure I could get them involved as well.
Well, happily, the RubyGems RFC template is closely modeled on the Cargo RFC template. So if they want to do some copy pasting.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Is this a working group that should sit next to the other 6 because it's nicely orthogonal to what they all do? Or is it something that, should be like an effort organized within one of the existing working groups? Might be a question for the TAC to consider.
I would advocate for a new working group. Just as I said above, the amount of fairly fine-grained technical detail that comes up, like literally down to questions of like, how do we use the SigStore log? What kind of MFA do we use? And while these could be discussed in an existing work group, most likely supply chain integrity, I fear that they would overwhelm it and take away oxygen from all the other initiatives.
Yeah. It might be prudent to have a in scope, out of scope, if you see what I mean. So
yeah,
where it's quite clear the level of separation to what the secure supply chain working group are doing.
I see Kim saying no problem, which I assume is her indicating they have no fear of jumping into the technical details and being overwhelmed by them. I should let her speak for her words. I just
Sorry,
wanted to,
I was
go ahead.
back on the old topic trying to dig through and find the old OSB notes.
Oh, okay.
I remember being in that meeting with David Wheeler and there being consensus in the meeting to move it. So sorry, I was trying to dig that up, but go ahead.
But I was going to say, I think the question of does something belong in an existing working group or not should be less about, would this new effort overwhelm existing working group efforts, and more about, is it in scope or not? Because one of the most important things to make sure we cultivate, and this is, okay, I'm sorry, I'm going to editorialize a bit. I'm not on the TAC myself. This is all up to you. But one thing to consider about the working groups is, to somebody who's learning about OpenSSF, coming in and trying to figure out what happens where, having kind of clear orthogonality between the different working groups is important to try to attempt, right? Especially for what we're doing, where I think we want to try to minimize overlap or minimize the amount of disparate efforts that solve the same problem. Thinking about what's in scope, and then you can always sub out, sub working groups or committees or whatever. But just something to keep in mind. We have a limited amount of bandwidth at the top of the project.
I'm perfectly fine with the sub-working group. I don't sort of have particular religion. I'm just basically taking the view that, given the amount of discussion we have and how crammed it was in that first meeting, and given that we will be increasing, no doubt, the number of people who are involved, I do fear that it would overwhelm existing working groups.
I'm going to chime in and say there's a similar influx of excitement that I'm seeing in the Git bomb project, in the same way that it's across a lot of package formats and language ecosystems. And so, seconding Jack's point that that's going to be a lot of activity for some group to manage. I'm not saying it shouldn't go in the working group, just to be mindful. And I also think that we should be more clearly scoping the boundaries around each working group.
Yeah, agree.
So one thing, I feel like there is quite a bit of overlap with the supply chain integrity working group, and it can be its own project. So think of like how Scorecards project has its own meeting and members. It's part of the security best practices, but now it has its completely own meeting and discussion forum. So I feel like there is quite a bit of overlap, but effort in itself, definitely we should spin up. Like, I think we have quite a bit of interest from different language ecosystems, like Python. I have some folks, and I think NPM, like Justin might have the same view. So effort we should definitely spend, but I think it can be a part of the existing working group in its own meeting.
So
I'll throw my 2 cents in. I mean, I think there's something to be said for optics around this, as well as the OpenSSF being a rallying cry for putting investment and energy, and just having the brand affiliation with various communities, I think would go a long way. So my personal opinion is I wouldn't get too hung up over subgroup versus separate group, but really focus on, hey, we're trying to facilitate that sort of cross collaboration. So plus one of the effort, but I think there's something to be said for optics.
Yeah, my reasoning for suggesting we be mindful about where to put the work is to help folks find it. Right. Part of the purpose of having collaboration in the OpenSSF as a nexus is people see it, they want to join, they need to be able to find it. So they go to the top GitHub page, or they go to the website, and they can identify which working group, based on a charter, has the work that they feel inclined to join or to help out with or to learn about. And if nesting this in a sub working group or a specific project or a meeting series that is chartered within a working group, how we do that doesn't matter to me so much as that we do it intentionally and visibly.
Makes sense. So I'd like to propose we go with looking at Jack's comment where he says they go ahead, keep their initial meeting. When they reach 5 meetings, bring it back to the TAC. We can assess your sort of scope that's played out and how well attended the meetings are. Then we can make a decision on, yeah, this makes sense to be its own WG, or, things are not being as busy as expected, and then it can, it can sub under an existing WG. Does that sound good?
That sounds good to me. I'll make sure that the folks who came to the inaugural unofficial meeting are updated.
And can I make a, I guess, perpendicular request to all this? Is so there's a document right now that says, what is it, working group life cycle in GitHub, and it's not, well, let's say it's very terse. I think we could use a lot of help here to make sure we clarify this. Like an easy example is, so what is the process, right? The process says proposal of scope for review by TAC. Like, what the hell does that mean? You know what I mean? Like, we have an issue in the TAC repo, but the details are very prose. Can we, I mean, I'm happy to take the lead on this, but can we agree to maybe clean this up and then have some expectations for this new group whenever they come to the TAC of being like, this is what we expect from you, for example? And then I think additionally to that, we need clarification on the existing working groups to make sure we understand what that looks like, big picture, and then we can decide what this does. I feel like those are two very large missing pieces.
Completely agree.
I see a lot of nods. I assume no one disagrees.
Yeah. I would like to, and I'm happy to either join or lead an effort to review the documentation around the working group lifecycle, project lifecycle, projects joining the TAC, what they get from joining the OpenSSF, what they get from that. I think I would like to propose that, sorry, we pick a TAC group, maybe the entire TAC, and it's 20 minutes out of this meeting plus mailing list traffic, or maybe it's a subgroup. Other people want to join. I'd love to have Anne's help, for example. And we, open a PR to update all of that documentation. And that can be a guide to new working groups or new groups like what Jack is proposing. And we get input from the current working groups that, it aligns with their hopes as well, because some of them have also been asking for this for a while. How does that sound to other TAC members? That we make that an effort of work for as long as it takes, hopefully not more than a month or two, for the new TAC.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you mentioned there, I think we might not actually have the answers to yet, which is what do you get out of joining the OpenSSF? What do we have to offer? I know there's all this money in a governing board budget, but I don't know where that is or how we offer it to people. There have been long wish list items of how do we pay for CI or buy domain names for the last year? And I don't think we have answers to that. So I'd love to actually answer those questions too as part of this. Before we go make up a bunch of rules and process, we should be clear on what you actually get for following those.
I would absolutely love to include that in what we're addressing and formalize the relationship between the governing board, their responsibility is to control the check, and the TAC, which is to support projects and help direct the money coming from the governing board into projects where they need it. I'd love to formalize all of that, Dan, and I'd love your input.
So I guess separate from formalizing, do we even know what budget do we have? Yeah, so I think it's a discovery process too of figuring out what the governing board has made available to us.
Yep, and I think this is also a perfectly normal part of growth of a foundation, right? The CCC and the CNCF both went through similar processes early in their life, so this is totally normal. Pardon the confusion for a while.
All right, so what's next? Ava, can you maybe create an issue in the TAC repo and we can all, I guess, start there?
Sounds good.
I'll assume you are in charge because you just volunteered.
I did. I guess so. Okay.
Great. Okay, so let's see. So we closed up about so Jax, you're good about the cool. Okay, and I've tagged there that we're going to create an issue around the previous discussion. So Brian, new chair for security tools working group.
Yeah, so the tools working group has had difficulty meeting on a regular basis, even kind of figuring out what time they'd like to set up for regular meetings and the like. And part of it was the current chair got a bit busy. Simon, I don't think he's on the call here. But I signaled actually a few months ago he needed to hand off. We had two folks volunteer, one named Paul Duplass and another named Josh Brussers. Paul indicated he was going to be pretty busy though for the first half of the year, for the first third of this year with a conference he's putting on. Josh is newer to the community, but very eager. Josh is on the call here. We had a conversation on list. Josh volunteered. I wrote privately with them. I think Josh would be a great chair for the working group, but absent kind of a sense of core on the working group, it was unclear to me how somebody becomes a chair. And so other than sheer, bravado and stepping up and saying, all right, I'm the new chair, let's go. So I figured it'd be worth bringing to the TAC here just to see, does the TAC want to name Josh as the chair for the working group? And so he could get started on rejuvenating it a bit and finding a new center for it, or is there some other process that you prefer folks to follow? It seems like there's consent on the list, but it's been quiet. So, and I'm very nervous about silence equaling consent. So I'd love your guidance on what you all think we should do here.
I think this happened before with Krob, right? Didn't you take over a working group and it was just the old chair? Yeah, the old chairs just kind of named you as the replacement or something. What happened there?
The groups I was in, the chairs were looking for help. So I became a co-chair, and then those chairs, one totally dropped out and the other one stepped back for work reasons. He's still an active participant, but no longer helps. So we asked the group, were they okay with this move? And working group call. There was no objection to that. So that's how I got elected to the lofty position of two facilitator roles.
You were going to say something, Josh?
Yeah, doesn't the OpenSSF charter specify working groups decide their chairs? Which makes this super weird because now we have a chicken and egg problem.
Yeah, so if the working group is still there enough to name a new chair, then it seems like maybe you're saying they're too not dysfunctional, but they've been disbanded too far to even do that. I think with Krob, it was a little bit more of like a warm handoff.
Yeah, I mean, Brian probably knows more about this than I do.
I would say if the group needs a chair and somebody is willing to do it, go for it. Because the other individual has said they'd like to do it, but they're not available for so many months. Was that right, Brian?
It was like till mid-April, and it was really, I'll do it if no one else volunteers.
Yeah.
And Paul is cool with it as well. I've emailed him, and I'm sure Josh would love Paul's help in rejuvenating the group. So I don't think it's a big deal.
Okay, so I mean, in this instance, I think it's fine for Josh to go ahead and chair, and unless anybody else has another view, of course. Would somebody like to we even need to second that? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's just up to the working groups unless they need help making a decision or something.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think that's what Brian was asking, is we just, I guess, what do we do, Brian? Do we just send an email to the working group and be like,
I don't think a motion is needed. I'm happy to relay to the group that it was discussed here, and general consent was that Josh will make a fine chair, and let's get started on scheduling our next meeting.
Yeah. In the two groups I was with, we asked the whole group, but we particularly leaned into the most active participants, the folks that were there the most frequently, to say, we'd like to do this, and this is everyone okay with that? So I would advise just handle it within the working group. And have a friend, so when you can't make a call or you need assistance on a tough project, you have somebody to kind of help share the burden.
Okay, I think we can consider the topic closed then. We'll go forward and bring this sense of consensus from the TAC back to the working group and get started on scheduling the next series of meetings. I see Arno has a hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I mean, one of the challenges is that the working group has been mostly dysfunctional for quite a while. And so I think you need to send a strong signal that the working group is essentially restarting so that you have enough people on the call so that, you know, asking if the group agrees for the chair, that, you know, makes sense. Otherwise, you know, every time there's a call, there's like a few of us who comes or not. And it's, you know, it doesn't make sense to have a call and ask 5 people, are you okay with that new chair? It's like, no, you need to first signal to everybody, okay, we are relaunching the working group.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, that's part of my intent is I want to take things in a slightly different direction than they've been going. So that's a good point.
Great. Okay. So anything else on the topic? Okay. So what we're going to do now is hand over to Priya, who's going to do cover the topic of SIG-Store's general availability.
Hey everyone, my name is Priya, in case you haven't seen me around before. I'm going to be talking about SIG-Store GA. It says 20-minute presentation in the agenda, but I think this should only take 5. Let me just figure out how to share my screen.
I built in 5 minutes for that.
Just while you're doing that, Priya, I just noticed it says Libby Hines. That's my daughter, where she does ballet on Zoom, and I don't know why I'm using. It seems like maybe it's my account that got used and got changed. So
We expect a dance, Luke.
Yeah, I'm not as good as she is.
Sorry about that, everyone. It made me like quit everything so that I could share my screen. I guess I have not done this before. Okay, can everyone see these slides?
Yeah, it looks good.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Great. So SIG-Store GA. And okay, great. So what are the goals of SIG-Store GA? So we're focusing on the main SIG-Store projects, which are Cosign, Recore, and Full CO, and we want them all to achieve 1.0 versioning. So Cosign actually already did this a few months ago, so we're mostly focused on getting Recore and Full CO there. We also want Recore and Full CO each to be production ready, and we're shooting for 99.9% uptime. Right now, usage of Full CO and Recore, especially within the Cosign CLI, basically comes with a lot of like experimental warnings and like use at your own risk. So we're hoping that we can get Recore and Full CO to a state where they're stable enough that we can remove all these experimental warnings and SIG-Store users can start to rely on the public instances of Recore and Full CO with confidence. So the focus areas around this are mostly around infrastructure, but we're also going to be making some progress on testing, documentation, and then adding individual features to Full CO, Recore, and Cosign themselves. I'll just talk about some of this really quickly. So the biggest piece of this is infrastructure. Right now, a lot of our services are sort of just deployed by owners of the code, and there's no real automated way of doing that. So around automation, we're working on automating, cutting and deploying releases. We're working on setting up a staging environment so that everything isn't just immediately pushed to production. And we're also working on automating IAM permissions for the GCP project that the production services live in. So this means that basically to have permissions to access the Kubernetes cluster that everything runs on, you'll need to go through a whole flow in version control and get approval by at least 2 other owners of the code. We're working on setting up some monitoring for the different components of the services and setting up alerts to Slack so that maintainers know when something is going wrong. And we're also setting up probers on GitHub Actions in case anything ever goes wrong with GCP. We'll have probers on a different service set up to make sure that the services are up and running. And yeah, and then alerting from GCP and GitHub Actions sent to Slack so that they're visible to the community and everyone can kind of see if something starts to go wrong. In terms of testing, we've been working on load testing for both Pulsio and Recourse so that we can feel more confident in their stability by the time that we announce GA, and then a comprehensive review of unit and integration tests for all 3 projects. Cosign is kind of the easy one in terms of what we actually need to do within Cosign. We just want to remove the experimental warnings and everyone can start to use some of our experimental features and with confidence, I guess. Recore, we have a little bit of work to do here. We want to set up rate limiting on the Recore server, set up the log sharding, and also test log sharding in staging before we can confidently say that Recore is 1.0. And in Pulsio, kind of similar, we want to set up rate limiting as well before declaring Pulsio 1.0. In progress, kind of at the same time, we've been working on a security audit with Include Security. So they're going to do a third-party security audit of our whole infrastructure and of each piece of each of the 3 services and tools as well. And meanwhile, also planning an on-call system to make sure that once we've announced general availability, people can be certain that if something does go wrong, there's someone available to fix it within a certain amount of time. So how long is this all this going to take? Honestly, we're not totally sure just yet. We're hoping it's going to take a couple of months, but the expectation is that once the security audit finishes, there will be obviously more work that maybe we didn't initially expect that we're going to need to do. But progress has been good so far, and I'm hoping that within a couple of months, we should be pretty much ready to start. Expecting GA will be ready soon. Some links in case anyone's interested to our project planner if you want to keep track of progress, and the original design doc, which kind of lists out all the things that we're definitely going to do, the things that we hope to do, and the things that we'll probably do once GA is done. And thank you to everyone who has worked on this so far, and I'm assuming that this list will grow longer in the coming months, but yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you, Bru. So anybody have any questions?
I think Ava has one on the chat.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and repeat it. For more than just the GA, but the versioning, are you planning to use Semver specifically with regards to API when you call it 1.0?
We haven't thought about it, to be honest.
Okay.
There are a few different APIs, I guess. There's like Go module stability where we do adhere to Semver. Then there's like Open API stuff that's exposed differently. Or yeah, well,
and the REST APIs.
Yeah, that's like exposed over Open API definitions. Sorry. So
okay.
Yeah, so to the extent that you can apply Semver to 2 different things in the same repos, yes. Go makes it kind of hard to do that, but yeah, I think the idea is to try.
This sounds like a great plan to reach GA, but I think calling it 1.0, I would suggest being clear as to whether you are committing to that API version and following Semver for either or both of those, or not. Just as long as that's clear to everyone who's using it, that'll help.
I can see Jim, you have your hand up.
Yeah, my name is Jim. I work in AWS cryptography, and us and a lot of our customers have a lot of interest in this space that SigStore is targeting. And we have a lot of questions about the implications of the SigStore, how it's set up, and using it in large ecosystems, and how that relates to what kind of feature sets would be available in 1.0. And I don't know if this is the right forum to ask these questions, or if there's a better place to ask detailed questions about some of the implications around authorization, blast radius control, trust management configuration, and what that would look like for in 1.0 and then going forward.
Yeah, so go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, so what I was going to say is we have the Sig Store community meeting coming up in 45 minutes on a weekly basis, and I would say that's probably a great place to dig into some of those details.
Okay,
Happy
cool.
to put you on the agenda. I mean, if folks want to talk about certain issues here, I won't preclude that, but you'll have a better representation from the folks within the Sig Store community that can speak to the breadth of those areas.
Okay, awesome. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Okay, great. So any other, I can just see the chat. Okay, it's the agenda. Okay. So any other questions at all? No, okay, that's great. Thank you, Priya. That's really useful presentation. Thank you. So let me just look at so that brings us to the end of the agenda. So I can give you 10 minutes back early, but I imagine by the next meeting, we'll probably have our new chair elected. Is it viable that the open vote will be turned around in that time?
Yeah, I mean, we could set
Okay.
the closing date to whatever we want, right, Jen? There's not like a minimum of 2 weeks or
Yeah,
anything.
yeah, I believe Ava's motion specified that the vote close by next Tuesday, so I'll open it as soon as possible. I just need to confirm like how much information y'all want to include and descriptions and things as I import into open vote, but we can discuss that all offline and get that opened up within the next day or so at the longest.
All the TAC members know each other and have seen our bios. I think all we need is a name.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the next
okay, great.
meeting is on the 8th. So
yeah. And the electorate here is just the TAC members themselves, right? The 7 of us vote for the chair amongst the 7 or the 2 who put their hand up.
Just one idea that's randomly come to mind that I'll bounce off you all. As we've got 2 folks going forward, would it make sense that the individual that is the follow-up, they could perhaps be an alternative chair?
A vice chair even. Yes,
yeah,
I love that
vice chair.
idea. Yep.
Because I'd like to reward both individuals coming forward and it makes sense that to have a vice chair.
It really does. Great idea, Luke. Having a backup, if one person is out sick or something, there's a designated person to fill the role. I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah, very, very much. Yeah, sounds good. Okay, great. So unless there's anything else really particularly important or burning that anybody wants to raise up quickly, we can close the call. Sorry, Brian, you were just saying.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, parallel conversation, same meeting. Apologies for that. No, I was intrigued by the mention that there was this Sig Store community call today, and just I want to make sure that that community as an OpenSSF community uses the same kind of structure and is engaged in the same processes as the other OpenSSF working groups and projects. So it wasn't. I didn't know that there were separate community calls and the like.
Yeah, I'm happy to fill you in on what we do, and yeah, you're welcome to come along as well. It starts in 10 minutes if you'd like to come along. It's a weekly call. It's actually open to anybody that wants to come along. Then what I'll do is I'll quickly, just before we close, get the link.
40 minutes, not 10 minutes.
Oh, is it? Okay. No, yeah, you're right.
You had me wired for a second.
Yeah. No, I've got another meeting in 10 minutes. So I've just put a link in to where you can get a calendar entry for the meeting. Okay. Right, so unless anybody has anything else, I will see you all in 2 weeks.
Thank you for being the facilitator today, Luke.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thanks, Luke.
Happy to. You take care. Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
Luke.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.